Hello! Holding the microphone today because the baby is napping and I'm trying to be quiet. I recently watched the new trailer for season 2 of The Rings of Power, and it looks pretty good, but mostly it made me think, I want to read my favorite book, the Silmarillion. So I thought, let's do a little series. Reread for me, the Silmarillion. It is my favorite book. It's just easily when people ask, like, list your favorite books or whatever, the Silmarillion is up there for me. It is just, I love it. I love it. I love it so much. I'm a nerd. Here we are, and we're going to read a book together. I have my pencil, and I have my little tabs for all of the things. Let's read through, and I have my tea all ready to go, so we're going to do a little reading. I'll check back in with you when I get through kind of a little bit of the first part. So let's read. It's a note from my husband in the book. Because he gave it to me when we were dating. So it's very special. Now I'm going to write all over it. It's going to be great. I am a preface skipper. I'm sorry for all of you people out there who love to read all of the preface and the foreword and everything. I usually read it at the end. I don't like reading it first because it sometimes tells me too much. But I do often will read it afterwards. Also, I'm just really enjoying that being a Tolkien book, there's family trees and there's drawings and just all of the things, which is part of why I love Tolkien so much, and particularly this book. And for future reference, I will be pronouncing everything probably wrong, so just so you're aware. Here we go, the first little section, which is one of my favorite, the music of the Ainur, which is just, I find it just so beautiful, all of the imagery and everything. Even the destructive stuff with Melkor is just written so beautifully. I'm in my daughter's room today with her beautiful artwork on the walls. It's loud. I'm doing laundry, and so the living room is too loud, so I'm in my daughter's room today. This is arguably my favorite part, this first bit. Like I said, I will not be pronouncing most of these right, but the Ainulindalë, the music of the Ainur, which is the first section. This is like the big prologue, I think. So this section of like Tolkien's lore and his mythology for his world is just num. I eat it up. I love it so much. I will say, as I was reading, I took many notes, and I have many tabs already, and it's just the prologue because I love it. In the music of the Ainur, there are 3 themes, I think, that I picked up on. During the music, there's a Melkor sows his discord, and it is chaos. Absolutely, he unmakes everything, and it is just noise and violent, and all this is happening in Iluvatar, the most high god. He's the one really in charge, who Melkor is always against. And he says this: the one melody was deep, wide, and beautiful, but slow and blended with an immeasurable sorrow, from which its beauty chiefly came. Sorrow makes beauty more beautiful, is a theme that comes through almost everything in not just the Silmarillion, but also in the Lord of the Rings story, and a little bit in The Hobbit too. Though The Hobbit it touches lightly. So that was one theme. There was another theme. Oh, here. This is what Iluvatar, the high god, says to everyone else. I have kindled you with the flame imperishable. You shall show forth your powers in adorning this theme, each with your own thoughts and devices of will. And I will sit and hearken and be glad that through you great beauty has been wakened, using others to create beauty or to create the world in a way that like the others are full form manifestations of the purpose, of the true meaning of life and of the story. But also that's basically what every villain in the story has a problem with. They want to be in charge and to do things their way. That is their goal in everything. This is a big theme for the Silmarillion, is in the god Aule. Aule's realm is over making things with like gold and gems and metals and things like that, which really invokes the Silmarils and just all of the craft and smithing that happens in Lord of the Rings. I mean, everyone's making swords and jewelry and armor like all over the place. And Aule is kind of the deity over that. And it says, but the delight and pride of Aule is the deed of making, and in the thing made, neither in the possession nor his own mastery. And it says he does not hoard, he doesn't keep it, he gives it. So his delight is in the making and in the final product, and then in giving it away. And that is the main problem that arises in the Silmarillion, which is named after the Silmarils, right? Beautiful gems. And the whole problem, the whole plot, spoilers, is in the owning and mastery of the Silmarils. Summed up so well in this one character who does it the right way. And now we're going to tell a story about how everybody else does this wrong. And even in the real world and not the Tolkien world, like you make a thing, it can be really unsatisfying if you want that thing to be for a certain purpose and it doesn't work out. And there's a lot more joy and satisfaction in just the making of the thing, whether it is good or used or appreciated, and in giving it away. That plays out in like a lot of different ways. The theme for all the villains is this. Melkor withdrew and departed to the other regions and did there what he would. But he did not put the desire of the kingdoms of Arda from his heart. His ultimate desire is to be master over all. All. Capital A-double-L. He wants everyone to be subjected under him, and it corrupts him completely. And every villainous character in Lord of the Rings, from a goon to Melkor and Sauron and Saruman and all the big bads, that is their desire, to be master over others. That is their goal and their desire in all of the stories. So that's the big themes. And so that comes through in the first little bit here. And I love that so much. And the whole point is for the children of Iluvatar, which is what they call men and elves. All of the peoples. The Valar, which is what the gods are called kind of when they're like addressed as a whole, they're called the Valar. They were drawn into the world. They're drawn into the physical world by the love of the children of Iluvatar, for whom they hoped. They took their shape after the manner which they had beheld in the vision. So they had seen a vision of men and elves coming, and that is how they appeared physically, so that the men and elves would be able to see them and recognize them because they would have similar forms. That's how they choose their forms, because they want to be recognized, because they already love these beings that haven't even happened yet. The whole point of the Song of the Ainur is men and elves and their story and their purpose by the Supreme God that he has for them, which they don't know what it is, but they are there to help them and to guide them. So the music of the Ainur, and then the Valaquenta, the account of the Valar, the Maiar, according to the lore of the Noldor. And so we walk through all of the next section is just walking through all of the different Valar, all of the gods, and all of their realms. And we have pretty important ones. We have Manwë, who is the head, the chief god. He's like Zeus. He loves birds. So the eagles are his. And he has a queen, and his wife is the queen of the Valar, and she is the Lady of Stars Varda, also known as Elebreth. So they're the leaders. Melkor, who's the bad guy, Manwë, who's the king of the Valar. They are kind of paired in power and might, and they were considered kind of brothers. So a little bit of like Cain and Abel feel, of like one good, one bad kind of feel to it. And Melkor is the one with, he has a lot of knowledge and a lot of power, and he kind of understands a little bit of everybody's power and abilities, and his knowledge, because it is a knowledge that is corrupted by his desire, it just, everything turns bad. And he is fighting, he wants to be in charge instead of his brother Manwë. He is also jealous of his brother. He loved Varda first and asked her to be his queen, and she rejected him. And then we get into kind of the nitty gritty, and this is the part that I really, really love. Ulmo is the Lord of Waters, and he is very important because water is really important in Lord of the Rings and in the Silmarillion. The Maiar, which are like angels, is how someone explained it, and I was like, yeah, kinda. Some of whom we're very familiar with, like Gandalf, Saruman. They are Maiar. They are of a higher order of power than like the elves and the men. Ulmo, the god of water, Lord of Waters, and he has some very powerful Maiar under him, Ose and his wife Unian. And Ose kind of represents the power and destructiveness of the ocean specifically. And Unian is the gentle, healing, life-giving nature of water. And then we have Aule, who we've talked about. He is the maker of things. He is lord over all the substance of which Arda is made, so all of the rocks and all of the metals and gems and all those things. And he is the smith and master of all crafts. He cares a lot about Middle-earth and the peoples there. Definitely goes to bat for Middle-earth quite a bit. And he has a wife, Yavanna, who is the giver of fruits, and she is basically, if the hobbits had a goddess, she'd be it. They are, you know, that line of hobbits have a love of things that grow. That's her realm. Husband with the rocks and the metals, and wife with the fruit. Oh, and then we have, I think the most interesting, not the most interesting, I think they're all interesting, clearly, the Masters of Spirits, who are known more by their dwelling places than by their actual names. We have Mandos, who I always forget his actual Nemo, not Manos, the Hands of Fate. Mandos. He is keeper of the houses of the dead. He knows everything. He knows how everything works out. He knows history. He knows the past, present, future. He knows all of it. He tells no one. And when he does say something, it's usually bad. So he's pretty important. And he comes up quite a bit in the stories. When an elf dies, they're saying they're going to the houses of Mandos and they will meet you there. We learn later he has halls for men and halls for elves. And they're different, and there's a reason, and we'll get into that later. His wife, Vaire, V-A-I-R-E, with the umlaut, the weaver. She makes tapestries that tell the stories of the world. And then she puts her tapestries all over the halls of Mandos. So it's not like he's got these big empty halls. They're actually comfortable. They're places that are welcoming. And the history of all of these people is on the tapestries that his wife has made. It's much more friendly than how Houses of the Dead is often portrayed. Okay, and then his brother is Irmo, or known as Lorien. And Lorien, which I'm sure you're familiar with, Lorien, Galadriel, it's related. Lorien in its gardens, and they are the fairest in all the world, filled with many spirits, and his wife Este is there, and she is a healer. So the gardens are where the healer lives, and all of the tie-ins with that. Visions, dreams, gardens, healing, rest, all tied together in these two beings and their realm. Always pay attention to dreams. To dreams, visions, and trees. Just, it's important. And then we have Niena. She is acquainted with grief and mourns for every wound. She is fascinating, and she is important. She is basically the goddess of sadness, But also her sadness and her grief teaches people pity and compassion and endurance and hope, which is beautiful. That should remind you of Gandalf, because he spent, thousands of years just sitting with her and learned from her, and then took that to Middle Earth. Like, those who wait in Mandos, in the halls of the dead, cry to her, for she brings strength to the spirit and turns sorrow into wisdom. So Nienna is called upon for wisdom, but her wisdom comes from suffering and sorrow and grief, which is a huge and beautiful theme in Lord of the Rings. Then we have a little bit of lightness. We have Tulkas, who is basically Thor. He's basically Thor. He runs fast, he hits stuff, and he's happy, and he loves a good fight. And his wife is Nessa, who is also lithe and fleet-footed, and she reminds me of the Roman goddess Diana. And she's like, yeah, let's run, let's dance and sing, and that's her jam. And so after, we have these people who are all sadness and halls of the dead and of, all these things. But then also we have Tulkas and Nessa, who are just having a raucous good time. And last, but certainly not least, Orome. He is hunter of beasts and monsters. He is kind of the god of Middle Earth, in that he tends the ground and the people and the places and fights monsters on their behalf, and is very, very upset with Melkor, as you can imagine. Like his wife, Vena, the ever young, all flowers spring as she passes, and all birds sing at her coming. So he fights the bad guys and cleanses of evil, and she brings new growth and bird song and happiness. So they're kind of a pair. We have a little section with all my tabs on the Maiar, and they're interesting, but they're more interesting later when they come into the story. So I kind of underlined some things. There is a little tiny story of the fall and redemption of one of them, which is very interesting, but we'll get into him later. And then we have a little hint of Gandalf coming. And so the Lord of the Rings, the main bad guy is Sauron. And Sauron is a Maiar, like Gandalf. Balrogs are also Maiar, these spirit beings that are like Gandalf and Sauron. They're all of the same kind of level, have different power sets, kind of different abilities, and then they basically are spirits that put on different garbs, different outfits when they come to Middle Earth. It's kind of the rough and messy version. I'll read you the last little sentence here, because it's describing Sauron and kind of his power in compared to his master Melkor, also known as Morgoth. But in after years, Sauron rose like a shadow of Morgoth and a ghost of his malice, and walked behind him on the same ruinous path down into the void. And that is the introduction to the Silmarillion. So chapter 1, the beginning of days, the history of the Silmarillion, Silmarillion, the first war, which is the fight of gods, basically. I just want to start reading it like right now, but I don't have time, and that's making me a little bit sad. Okay, ooh, I'm so excited. All right.